Well, I was diagnosed with head and neck cancer, specifically tonsil cancer, in October of 2010. Started my treatment right after surgery, and I'm 2 years out of treatment now, and cancer-free, as I like to say. Coming from a position of not knowing anything about any kind of cancer, it just had never been in my family. We're very fortunate that we haven't had that. So I knew nothing. And I mean, you know, you go on the internet and you read and you read and you read, and you just you glaze over. I'm not medically oriented. These words I did not understand them. And when you read a sentence and you have to look up every other word, by the time you get to the end, you forget what the first word was. So I was having a very difficult time. And if my surgeon hadn't given me that kind of support, I think I would have been, I don't know what I would have done. The two oncologists, neither one was very strong. Neither one said, this is what you should do. They didn't recommend a course of treatment. And they say, here are your options. I went for a radiation, 35 treatments, and that was in the morning. Well, then my chemo once a week was like at noon. So I'd have to go to the hospital, come home. Then I'd have to go back for that treatment and come home. And then even after my treatment was done, I was at the hospital 3 and 4 times a week for IV therapy because I was dehydrated and I couldn't eat. And so it was probably, let's see, November, December, 4 months of being at the hospital every day. So I was taking cabs to and from. And it was one of the most difficult things was when I would leave and be so sick to have to sit in the lobby and wait for the cab, and sometimes it would be half an hour before a cab could come, and I just wanted to be home or in a room somewhere where I could lay down, you know. And if the hospital were delivering me in that, not only would they understand and be able to help me, because a cab driver isn't going to help you get it up and out of the cab, and I had trouble doing that sometimes. I had to literally get a wheelchair to go to radiation. But that would have been, oh, what a blessing that would have been. Some of the side effects are difficult to live with. My taste buds aren't quite back to the way they should be, so I don't enjoy food the way I used to. And it's so difficult to eat anyway. I just never care to eat. So there's little things like that that it might be kind of nice to talk to someone about. Cancer does change your life. As much as you want to say it doesn't, and you're just exactly the same, it does. And there are things that you have to live with. And so follow-up is probably pretty important.
The day I found out was a Friday, and it was news that I never expected to hear. I was terrified. I didn't know where to turn at the moment. You're just kind of perplexed about everything. It was a scary thing. The people, the nurses, the doctors, everybody was so special and took such good care of me, and I always felt that they really cared what was going to happen to me, and that made going to these appointments that much better. Being a patient for this was interesting. I was by far one of the youngest people, and it was, I felt like I didn't belong, that I should have been in some other part of the hospital, not in the cancer wing. One day I was going through treatment. It was one of my final treatments, and by then I was an old pro. I could practically give this to myself at that point. And there was a woman, an older woman, who spoke very little English, who was sitting next to me, who had just had a mastectomy, and she was there for her very first treatment, and she was having an allergic reaction. And that was a woman who had no health benefits. Now, when I was going through my first treatments, for more than 3 times, my nurse sat there with me as this medication was being administered to me to make sure that I didn't have any reactions. and she was left all by herself. I think that it's unfortunate, and I feel that everybody is entitled to the same care, whether you have insurance or whether you don't.
My experience was frightening to any woman. I was just having my normal mammogram, and the test came back with unusual findings, which creates then a procedure and a process that I'm sure the hospital is used to, but sure not me, because what it is more involved tests. So you just simply get scheduled for more and more tests, and it's sort of take the test and wait, take the test and wait, which is what happened to me, but it was finally confirmed that it was cancer. With that, then a treatment plan had to be developed, and it was changed a bit because it went from surgery to I needed chemo, to radiation, to anti-estrogen. So that's my treatment plan. And right now I'm in the middle of the chemo cycle. I expect them to be walking step by step with me and explaining what's going to happen. Because cancer, I'm not going to say it's unpredictable, because sometimes it is predictable. But what I'm going to say is it can turn, and you have to have people with you that you trust. I would have to say that the important thing that I did have, and I'd recommend more of, is that personal attention to the details. Where do I go? What do I bring? Do I eat? Do I not eat? All of those kinds of reminders. Only because the truth is you're just beginning to feel bombarded with so much information and do's and don'ts, and so that's all I could think of. More of that kind of treatment, that almost hands-on. And not that I'm not an adult, and I could figure it out, I'm sure, but it sure felt good for somebody to say, meet me up on 7 and I'll show you where to go.